more years than I care to remember, I became involved in the struggle for reproductive freedom, and that dates back to 1963. I was clinical director for a drug company called Emco, which makes birth control products. And while at a hospital in New York City, I heard a woman scream. And like anybody else, I ran into the hospital corridor to see what was going on. And I saw a woman covered with blood from the waist down, and she was staggering. And obviously, I raced to help her, and as I caught her as she slumped to the ground, I noticed she had an 8-inch piece of wire coat hanger embedded in her uterus. And that woman died. And it so angered me that we lived in a nation that not only did this poor woman not have the right to an abortion, but many of your viewers have no idea that she didn't even have the right to birth control. In 1963, in most parts of the United States, birth control was a crime. This was a board that showed various birth control and abortion devices. When abortions were illegal, women would take a douching bag and fill it with Lysol or bleach or turpentine. Or indeed, they would use a catheter and fill it with salt water, thinking that a hypertonic solution might abort them. And they didn't realize that if they would squeeze from the top of this syringe, you would force air into a major blood vessel, and the person would die of an air embolism. Or when they took the douching bag and they filled it with soap, they didn't realize that the body could absorb the fat from the soap, and that would be a fat embolism. But more often than not, that people would very often take a piece of wire coat hanger, wrap the end of it with adhesive tape, so it wasn't so sharp. And the idea was to gently push it inside the uterus and scratch the wall of the uterus. The goal was not to do the abortion as much as the public thought. That wasn't their goal, of poor people. Their goal was to induce bleeding. And then if they bled, they could rush to a hospital, and the hospital would say, quote, to save the patient's life, she came in bleeding, she had to have the abortion done. But here's the kicker. A lot of poor people didn't know the uterus is the size of my fist and maybe half an inch thick. So if they pushed the wire coat hanger too hard, pushed it through the wall of the uterus, the woman would hemorrhage to death.